Thank you for tuning in and welcome back, team. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to sell a home with tenants? If you have tenants in your home, then you're in the right place today. You'll know two options to be able to sell your home even if it's tenant occupied. My name is Andrew Finney, your real estate geek. If you need help finding a top agent where you live, or if you simply want to drop me a line and say hello, my contact info is below. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel now and like this video. I upload 6 days a week, so please be sure that you tap the bell icon so you can always stay atop of the next video whenever it becomes available. Okay, team, so let's take a look at this. You know, this is a really common thing as people invest into property. You've invested in the property and now you're getting ready to sell it. You might have a tenant in place and wondering what are your options to be able to get this done. So let's go ahead and review the option one, waiting for the lease to expire. That's the first thing that you can do. Now there's a couple of pros here and there is a con obviously and then a solution. So let's review the pros. It allows you time to make updates to the property if it's going to get you a higher sales price. Let's say that the tenant is getting ready to move out. Once they move out, you can go in, survey the property, assess the property, get it cleaned up, go ahead and update the property to put it into a more sellable condition that's going to net you a higher amount of money. The second pro is also it can alleviate timing issues with closing. If you are waiting for a lease to expire and you have a buyer that's going to be purchasing your home, more than likely they're going to be an owner-occupied finance type buyer, meaning that they want to move into the house right after it closes, then it can alleviate issues with timing and keeping your deal together and keeping it strong. Now obviously one of the cons of this approach is that you're still going to have your mortgage carrying cost. So each month that you're without tenants, once it expires and you're on the market, you're going to be carrying the cost of the mortgage along with the upkeep of the property. So that's one thing to think about. Now, if you're looking for other solutions, you can always plan on meeting up with a trusted real estate advisor before, maybe somewhere between 2 months and 3 months before the lease expires. Meet up with a trusted real estate advisor, talk about the best strategy in your area for selling a house that's tenant occupied and waiting for the lease to expire so that you can go into action right away as soon as the tenant moves out and get everything ready to go and get that home sold. Now, the second option is to actually sell the property with the tenants in the home. So you might be wondering, how is that possible, Andrew, right? So let's go ahead and go over a couple of pros, a con, and a solution here as well. So the two pros is it's built-in staging. Number one is built-in staging. Provided that the tenant is living in the property and taking up the property, the home will be furnished and buyers will have an easier time picturing themselves living there if you are able to get professional listing photography and allow showings to take place as well. If your tenant is taking good care of the home and decorated it nicely, it may be more desirable to potential buyers anyways. So the second thing is it's also attractive to investors. Now, investors aren't so concerned with how the property looks so long as it's in good condition, right? So an investor would be looking for a tenant-occupied property because, like yourself, they don't want to have to go through the issue of finding a good tenant that's been paying rent on time and taking up the property. So if that's your case and you have a really good tenant, perhaps working with your trusted real estate advisor would be best to approach investors with the mindset of being landlords and building up their rental portfolio and getting it sold that way. Now, a con, obviously, is that a disgruntled tenant can make showings difficult. So if you are planning on listing the property with the tenants in the place, then you know, you've just told your tenant they have to move out, and they may or may not be so happy about the idea of having to move out, especially if it's before the lease expiration or the lease expiration has to be honored. They still might be a little bit difficult, and now you expect them to keep the home at showing level clean and accommodate showings and open houses if at all possible. Well, that could be a little bit hard for them to swallow, and an unpredictable tenant can have a major impact on how the house shows and how it actually works out. Obviously, whether or not you can sell your property with a tenant inside of it or allow and permit for showings is going to be contingent upon the type of lease agreement you and the tenant agreed upon on the onset of their rental time. It also depends if they're month to month or if they got that lease expiration in place, okay? So a solution is that you can actually persuade your tenants to cooperate with your listing plans. Consider offering them a lower rent for a few months in exchange for an agreement to show and clean a well-kept home. Other incentives could include a flexible move-out date or reimbursing for moving costs. So you can actually incentivize the tenant by saying, hey, I'll give you your last month rent free if you move out early. And that might work. I mean, I don't know any tenant that wouldn't like to have rent free. They just save a lot of money and then get into their new place quicker without having to worry about that as well. So now what you want to do is actually review your lease agreement and determine your legal options if necessary. Whichever path you choose, the first step should always be reviewing the lease agreement that you have with your tenant, and you should also look up the laws in your local state regarding how much notice is required to vacate, how much notice is required for you to give for them to vacate. Your real estate agent and your trusted real estate advisor in your local area will be a great resource for local requirements, as well as offer tips for successful sales with tenants in the home, whether it's waiting for the lease to expire, selling the home with the tenants in it, and how to take a look at it. The actions you take, and most importantly when, will actually depend on what type of lease agreement you have with your tenant. If they're on a month-to-month lease, well, normally in many places across the country, simply issuing a 30 to 60-day notice of intent to sell the property and for them to vacate is more than enough for them to go ahead and get out. If they're in a fixed-term lease, and if the lease includes any early termination clause, this is where it goes back to the importance of working probably with the property manager to make sure that you have these clauses built into your tenant lease agreement. So if you have an early termination clause, you can vacate your tenants with proper notice. If not, you'll have to wait out until their lease is up, with one exception. If your tenant has failed to pay rent or violated any of the lease terms within the contract, you may be able to terminate the lease early if they are in breach of that contract or in violation of that contract. Now, what I would suggest to you is to make sure that you document each and every occurrence as it happens and actually mail, email, text message the tenants whenever they're in breach, anytime and every time that happens. Doing so, you're providing yourself with written documentation and that you have now put them on notice that they have paid the rent late or they have breached a certain condition of the actual lease agreement. That will give you a better cause if you have to go into evicting the tenant. Something to think about. Document everything that you do there. So give thought, lastly here, give thought to the message and the delivery towards a tenant. I mean, we're all people at the end of the day. Treat people with respect and you'll get respect in return, right? A little bit of common courtesy will go a long ways. If you're respectful, you're informative, and you give, you're respectful and informative, and you give your tenants the opportunity to respond and digest everything, you're going to be pleasantly surprised more than likely by just how much you can get with being respectful, okay? And then you could, as a third option, of course, offer your tenant the opportunity to buy the property. If you offer them the opportunity to buy the property, also they need to qualify for a mortgage. I mean, this is sometimes when you see sellers going into a lease to own with a one-time non-refundable option fee, or you see a lease to own agreement that is structured so that a portion of the rent starts going towards a down payment, or even seller financing if you own the property outright or you have a very small mortgage on it. Each one of those come with different pros and cons in and of themselves when we start talking about lease options. So I would advise you to consult with a real estate attorney, discover your options, and see which option is best for you if you choose a lease option. Definitely want to meet with a real estate attorney there to understand the ins and outs of that, and meet with a trusted real estate advisor if you just plan on going ahead and selling the property. If you have any questions about this, I'm going to go ahead and pop up my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me. Always love to hear from you, even if you just want to say hi. Just enjoy hearing from you and what your feedback is from the video. What's the most impactful part of this video to you? Tell me in the comment section below what you took from this video and share it with our community along with any of your other savvy tips you would like us to know. Let's continue to learn and to grow together. If you haven't already done so, I'm going to ask you to do 3 things. Number 1, please subscribe to this channel. Number 2, please like this video. Number 3, please share this video around with someone you know is going to be able to help, because right now I'm sure you can think of just one other person just like yourself that could really use this information today. Please share it with them. Thank you. In between now and next time, I'm wishing you and yours a lifetime full of love, wealth, abundance, and happiness. Make it a great day.